Hey, friends, welcome back to the Call to Lead podcast. I'm so excited to do another interview today with one of our founding partner mentors. And if you are a longtime listener of this podcast, you've already met this girl and heard a little bit of her story. And Marenda Benson is going to be sharing an update on some big changes that have happened and some big things that have happened since we last chatted with her on this podcast. But she's also going to be sharing a little bit of insights of her story of how Restore Collective came into her life and how she is absolutely a perfect fit as a founding partner mentor for our company. So let's get into today's episode. Marenda, I am seriously so excited to have you back on the podcast because it really, it's been, I cannot believe it, but it's been like, I think 6 months, but it feels like just yesterday that we had the opportunity to share your story of how you were just absolutely exploding in the business that we were a part of together. And it's just such a joy. And I'm going to kind of update people, but I just want to thank you for being here. I'm so excited.
I'm so excited to be here. It's always just an honor to be with you. And I feel like, clearly when we're gathered, we're with him, right? And so it's just always so like God ordained. And I feel like fruitful our time together, whether it's on being recorded or not. So,
Speaking of, I made sure that we are in fact recording because if you also remember from the last time with Marenda, we actually had to do that podcast or half of it anyway, twice because of a little tech glitch. So we are recording. And I just know that there's going to be so much goodness from the update for your story with us. And I can't wait to keep the conversation going. But if you haven't listened to Miranda's previous episode, I highly recommend that you go do it because she drops loads of wisdom, you guys, like so much goodness for whatever facet of your business that you are in, whether that's with Restore or just following along our journey. You will love hearing all of the goodness that's there. But today, I want to give you a really it is an update worth celebrating, and honestly, it will go down in history as one of the hardest, but also one of my favorite memories of our time at our previous company. And that day before the news became public of the change with the company we were with before, this girl right here, Miranda, ranked to what was basically the top. We'll just call it like 20 in the company, right? Like literally top point. I don't even know what percent. She probably knows what percent it is, but top tippy top for the company. Literally one day or 2 days. It was 2 days before. 2 days before. The next 2 days later, she found out that that business, that team, everything that she had built there was going away. And it was for sure one of the most heartbreaking moments I know for me. But I have to shout out the fact that she did it despite the discouragement, the confusion. She could even feel that there was some stuff maybe like kind of brewing in the air. But she and her amazing team, what they accomplished right there at the end is worth celebrating. And then the memory that will stick with me as I literally think it's probably my favorite Saint memory, no joke, was when we did same day that this news dropped, we did a call to celebrate our girl Miranda hitting that huge celebration. And there were people from across the company that weren't even on her team. There were sideline leaders. There were some of the Restore gals that you're meeting. And of course, her team, her leaders that hopped on to celebrate her in that moment of just despair and sadness and frustration. And she deserved every minute of it. And just being able to see the impact that she had on so many people and to be able to be celebrated in the midst was such a blessing. So she did in fact rank. She crushed it. And Miranda, congratulations on that huge update.
thank you. Goodness, that was so kind of you. All those kind words. And just thinking back to it, I'll say this because even in, just like you said, the heartbreak of it, and it was kind of to where I knew something was coming. And right before, during the podcast that you mentioned that we had in June, I remember at the end of it, we closed with, you always say faith over fear. And I was saying that I was having to put my faith over wanting to control and making sure I had that trust in him and his plan. There was a part of me that kind of like knew or felt like things were uneasy, things weren't right. The rug might be pulled out front of me. I felt like something, but once it all happened, I told somebody I would do it all again for what I learned and what I gained from that experience. The women that I now call my friends, I have some of my best friends in the world and some of the smartest women in the world in my corner holding hands with me from that company. And it's never, I mean, it wasn't in vain. It was a fruitful time. It was a time that grew me and stretched me and developed me in ways that would not have happened outside of there. Like, I truly believe the Lord used that time to prepare me for what's to come.
Yeah. That perspective, my friend, and the fact that you, like you said that almost prophetically before this happened, and you still got it done, and you still were able to accomplish that amazing milestone. But the fact that you still trust and are still trusting in the Lord in His time, and we were just talking about that before we hit record, is just honestly, that's the most inspiring part of your story. And so I want for those who haven't heard that episode or who haven't gotten to know you, I would love to kind of start with just maybe your background and the kind of the before, during, and after of direct sales and network marketing so they can kind of get to know you and your story.
Yes. So I'm actually what I like to call a speech therapist by trade. And I got into that because I've always wanted to help others and serve others. I have very much servant leadership, but like a servant mindset. And so for me, it was I knew I could partner with families to help children and also very goal oriented in the way I do things. So targeting the needs that these kids have or adult, because the speech therapy, it's literally like birth to wrinkle, or we say like twinkle to wrinkle. And so being able to do that, but just the relationships and those being goal oriented. So I've been a speech therapist, gosh, I guess for 11 years now. And I got into my last company just from watching other women do it, and it looked fun and they could share a product they love, which we all do. So lots of times when people are hesitant with direct sales, I'm like, you do realize that like you can literally just share something you love, just like you do your Starbucks or my coffee that I drink at home or this cute cup that I talk about that you can get at Target. I'm like, literally just share something you love. But you can make commission from it. And so I didn't realize it was that kind of easy in the sense to where I had looked at direct sales and I had seen it done the wrong way. So when I started seeing it done the right way, I was intrigued by it. And I was, you know what? I was a mom to 2 kids, 2 and under at the time. And kind of in this transition period, like at that time, which was almost 4 years ago, and I needed something else. And it ended up being like the perfect little fit. And I thought of the ways that I wanted to do it to take away the right, and to what did I not like, and how could I do it in the way that was fun, and the way that other people that did serve others and that did bring them value. And so that was it for me is kind of the skills that I had and how could I use those by doing something I love and sharing something I love.
I love that. And one of my favorite parts of your story and the amazing success and the way the Lord used that servant heart, right? And like you said, your background, your experience, it's like it all worked together to bring you, into that role. But one of my favorite parts of your story is you didn't get in early. You didn't get in at the beginning. You were 4 years into, a company you joined after the COVID craziness. It wasn't like you rode the waves of some company momentum, which is possible and great, and people will experience, and people have it. I mean, I've experienced that, right? But you, my friend, like built something in those 4 years that was so strong and so beautiful, and it was based in those servant-hearted mindsets that duplicated down with others, right? But also in the systems. Like this girl is a systems wizard, and I love it. We're cut from the same cloth, and she just has, figured out a way to make it to where other women just like you, whether it's like you're a stay-at-home mama or, busy working mama, it's like you can build a business around, like you said, sharing the things that you love, which is even still what you're doing today, even in the waiting before we get this thing to launch to Restore. So speaking of Restore, tell the story of how this all kind of came to be. I mean, obviously it's an obvious fit because again, it's a joy and a blessing to be able to continue working with you, and it's an honor to have you as a founding partner mentor. And we'll probably come to know is no shop. But tell a story of how this all came to pass because it's kind of crazy.
Um, I feel like there's so much of it that I want to share. So clearly the news happened, and full transparency, I was, talking with my best friend when we kind of like Heather alluded to, I said, like, I thought that something might be going on with our previous company. Like, I just was unsettled about it. And I remember talking to my best friend and like telling her, and she was like, I don't know what you're talking about. You're clueless. And she's like, but what if it does happen? Like, and she wanted to start like, what would we do next? And I was like, I can't even think about that. I don't know that I could do that. And for me, thinking ahead to the heartbreak, I was like, I don't know that I could go into direct sales again because for me, it was the heartbreak, but it was also at that time. And then honestly, once the news hit, it took me a few days before I could think about stepping into another company because I felt like I had let down the women on my team. Because at that time, I had believed so much in our company and in the vision of being an artist. Like full transparency, I didn't, question a lot of things that like after that happened, thought about looking at and looking into the way it was created and the purpose of it when it was first created and things like that. As our family did begin to share of like what her vision was, I didn't realize that was her vision. So I didn't realize how she truly didn't really want the direct sales model and that piece of it. Whereas for me, I love the team part and the community part, and that piece of it was my heart. Like, I love helping a woman simplify her makeup routine or figure out how to use whatever. I love that. But the team aspect, there's just so many pieces of it. So after a few days, after like the heartbreak, the initial shock, all of that, I realized I was not done with direct sales. And I remember Jackie Richards, she's a state artist. She and I kind of got to where we talked a lot through this. We were both pretty emotional during a lot of this and kind of processed together. She and I were talking one night and she asked me, she's like, so are you done? Because I hadn't moved on. I hadn't, some people, they said jumped other places, but I hadn't stepped into anywhere else yet. And I was like, I don't believe I am. The Lord has like today, just in prayer and the word and thinking about myself, like I was able to reflect back. And I truly believe that others see me so much through what I do in direct sales. The skills and the gifts he's given me are just brought to light in that. And yes, it's in motherhood for me. And yes, I can serve others locally, but that's where I can reach a lot more people is in direct sales. So I knew that that piece, I didn't think it was done. And I looked into several other companies. It probably would have been easier to go to other companies at the time to fill that financial gap. And because I had my best friends joining other companies and not all of them were joining the same place. And that made it hard. A lot of these companies are phenomenal companies with amazing women there, amazing leadership there. That for me, it was hard because I felt like I was saying no to them. And I mean, like I was, right? But it was so hard because it wasn't that I didn't believe in them and what they were doing. It was that I just did not have peace that was right for me. And that was hard because I was like, Lord, we rely on this, number one, financially for our family, but I also miss that piece. And they're able to go on and they're building something that I'm not a part of. Right. And within a few days, Heather had a call and she was like, I want you to be on it. Well, honestly, like a few days after the news happened, we were on a call with Heather just processing. And we're kind of all crying together processing. And someone threw out the thing of like, what if we create our own company? And we joked about it, right? Well, then Heather invited my husband and I, Jonathan, onto a Zoom call, but it happened to be on a Friday. I think it was a Friday morning. He works from home, but we also have 3 kids that are 6 and under that are home with us, so we couldn't be on it. Well, the next week, we got the replay. We planned to watch it together, and it just with 3 kids never happened that we watched it together. So if he watched it one day, and then I happened to watch it that night, and after he watched it, he was like, "All right." He had a few questions. I've talked about them before, but he was very supportive and of like, "I think this could be it." And so then I watched it, and it's so funny because I bring this up, but I literally thought we were gonna be sharing about Neosporin, like your first aid kit type thing. But I felt it was like the first time I felt peace and like moving forward and joy. And y'all, it is so funny because I told Heather this. I was like, my family doesn't even use Neosporin. Like I'm not breastfeeding right now, but I breastfed for almost like 6 years or was pregnant like consistently. I have breast milk in the fridge. Like we still use breast milk on our like boo boos and scrapes and stuff like that. But I was like, I can do this. I don't like, I just felt so much of like that was where the Lord was leading me that I was like, okay, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but we're going to talk about Neosporin and everybody needs it. So, everybody needs some type of something. We're going to make sure it's the best Neosporin they can get. Right. It's- So, long story long, that was kind of me stepping into Restore. And just know it. I mean, like, I knew and I had such a peace and like, this was it. This was what he wanted. And this is why everything else did not give me peace and almost gave me a little bit of that fear and uneasiness. And it wasn't the like, and I had to pray through it too. Going to some of those other places of like, is this me scared to start over? Is this me just uneasy because it's something new? Or is it truly that this is not where you want me? Because it's so hard at those times when we're in that frustrating or confusing time in our life. But it's also like that was a time, and I think so many of us that walked through what we did or have been stepping into Restore would say, like, the devil has been at work and there's been so many things that have happened, but it's the time that we've been the closest with him and like in the word the most to know this is what he has and this is where he is leading or directing.
Yes. I think that's like the coolest part about our story with Restore. And I think a lot of people who've been following the journey probably maybe know. I don't know if we've ever even really officially talked about the like back when it was Neosporin inside joke. But now's as good of a time to like, put it out there. But what's funny is like it all started with this particular product, which is neat that it's like literally here and has come to fruition. But it was this renewal ointment, which is a topical immunotherapy that stimulates your own immune system to kick in to restore any damaged cells. And so that's kind of where it started. It was called Heal Collective, which we're legally not even allowed to use that word, which is hilarious. And makeup wasn't even a part of it, nor was like, anyway, it was just not the same thing. But we have enough of a green light. And what's wild is like the mission, vision, values, like most of that has not really changed, but
Mm-mm.
how we're accomplishing that has changed a lot. And what's really cool is that the Lord has like then brought it into something that makes obviously way more sense for you and most people that are involved, myself included. But at the time, I think you're right. Like it's like it because everything you said resonates with me and my story too of like feeling those feelings of we were so all in that when we didn't have a choice to do that, it felt weird that we had, you know, almost like misleading people to be all in with something that was unstable. But it's like, I remember another friend who I think it might have even been that same call when we were kind of processing together. She had had a divorce and it was kind of a sudden ending that she wasn't, expecting when it happened. And it was obviously really, really hard for her. And I remember asking, like, well, do you regret being all in, in your marriage? And she was like, never, not once do I regret that. And that gave me such peace. And I think you and I are cut from the same cloth, Miranda, with our optimism. And that's what we're going to talk about next is the strengths. And they do cross over, of course. But I just really feel like that hope and that passion and that commitment and that loyalty is a value that people need. And I think that's been a part of why you have been so successful in the past and why you will continue to be successful here. And it's such a blessing. You stuck around now that it's no longer, well, not technically Neosporin. But anyways, so let's dive into some of the questions that are like more, kind of specific to each of the founding partner mentors
Okay.
following along can do it. And we'll start with kind of the surprise element, which at this point is probably not at all a surprise, which is your 5 gifts from the high5test.com, high number 5test.com. And it's my favorite simple way just to see like what are the unique gifts that the Lord has given to, each one of us and how does that work together? For someone who's looking for a mentor and restore and doesn't really know people, like what are they looking for strength and skill set wise? And so I think this is just a fun way to kind of share. And so Miranda's are coach, empathizer, believer, strategist, and catalyst. And so I mean, all of those, I'm like, yep, 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 yep. And it's such a beautiful facet of like blending both like the how and then the ways to inspire the who to do those things. But how do you feel about those? Do you feel like they're an accurate reflection of your gifts?
Yes. I'm like, just in my like kind of heart for direct sales. So then it also goes into like the speech therapist part of like the strategist. And you think about goals and like, how do I target this kid with direct sales for me, especially like serving a customer as far as like, what's their area of concern? How can I help them? Or my teammate of like, what are their goals? So it's like that coach aspect or teacher. And then the catalyst of like going for it and like pushing people, like helping people. And I don't know, there's so many of those that I'm like, yep, yep, that plays into that. And that's why I do that. And that's how that, yep.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah. And I love the empathizer piece because I think that one and the catalyst, those are because we've seen coach and believer already a couple times, which is so interesting that and I think those are honestly, I would say two of the biggest gifts that are needed in the role of a founding partner mentor, right? Is like a believer in, well, the Lord, but also just like, believe like
Others.
have, strong alignment and beliefs. Yeah, exactly. And others too, like you said. Yeah. But then the coach piece, it's like being able to clearly and easily tell someone else to get them excited. But that empathizer piece, I feel like is a unique gift with you in that like you feel and resonate deeply with others, which is the connection piece, which and I know is both the best part of this business and also the hardest part is like the relational. You talked on that when like our friends are not at like actually on the loyalty episode. I know we even talked about that loyalty isn't like about like all being in the same company or even all being on the same team where someone's benefiting from somebody else financially. It's like
Mm.
being loyal to the relationships and that starts from that place of empathy. So
And I think like, the coach aspect, you can coach in so many ways, but I think for me, it's that empathizer and the belief aspect that kind of change the way I coach because I empathize with whatever, like, if I lead a team, I know that I have a team of however many women and they are each unique in what they bring to the table, but also what their goals are. So it's like you have to be able to take that into consideration of what they need or want or expect. And that's kind of, I think, the way like I empathize with them of knowing where they're at. But then that belief part is knowing like knowing what they're capable of. I think that was one thing that I always was is that like one of my gifts is like believing in others until they believe in themselves. And I knew that. But when you hear people, I remember, I don't believe it was on your podcast that you interviewed one of my good friends, Rachel. And I remember her saying that, like, I had believed in her until she believed in herself. And that, like, she remembers very early on me telling her that, like, you can do this and I'm going to believe into you until you do. And I'm like, yeah, that's it. Like, that's like, you forget that you say some of those things, but I'm like, that's truly who it is, like how it is. And being able to be a part of that. So, yes, that all plays together.
well, and I remember you sharing the beautiful story of how that was exemplified to you on the previous podcast where you had a mentor that did the same thing to you. And it's like the looking at the impact of how that we can make on others, like whether that's our kids, whether that's, someone like your speech therapy, you know, patients, whoever it is. And certainly our team and, sidelines, it's like the impact that we can have by just believing in others is just huge. And I know that self believer was another strength up there for yours, and that one is important too. And I think that's worth noting that like when you can believe in yourself through other people exemplifying that to you as they have, like that then helps you to have that overflow to be able to share that with others. So love those gifts, girl. So let's see what the next question is. So, oh, this one's a fun one and also a hard one. Of the 12 core values, which of course we've shared and broken down each one of them, over the podcast, if anybody listening wants to go back and catch up. But if you had to pick one that resonates the most with you, which one would that be and why?
Okay. So, this is going to probably be long again. So, okay, I think the one, like I look back over because I was like, okay, she's probably going to ask something with this. So I would say the most important one, which I know, like when you talk with Christy, I was like, oh, yes, agreed. I would say the most important one is like biblical wisdom for us, right? Because that is what like kind of encompasses the others. But I think the one that I most resonate with or that's like truest to me, I'm like equally almost feel like torn is servant leadership and abundance. Because it's like, and you kind of know part of like the abundance that I've always had this abundance mindset. And I've always wanted as much for others as for myself and done things not to just benefit my own self. And that's like Heather mentioned other women I made relationships with, like in and through Saint, that were no part of my team. And like anything I have, anything that is good of me is not me, it's of him, right? So it's not mine to give. Like he's given it to me to give to others. And so he's never ending. There's more of that, right? And that's kind of like what I want to exemplify. So I think that abundance mindset, but then also like I'm just a servant leader because that's who he was, and not that that's what I am, but like that is what I want to be, and that's what I aim to be. So I think those two for me, I'm like, I don't know that I could choose between the two.
I think that's a beautiful answer. And the word abundance will always remind me of you for sure, in your story. And we've even talked about that word on the podcast. I'm trying to remember, but it was around that time I know that it just started to really reflect who you are. And that was a former word of the year for me, actually, was abundance too. So I think but those are good ones. So the next question is about your branch. So, of course, if someone's listening and they haven't heard this analogy, the concept of the founding partner mentors is something that I'm talking like day one, I felt was how we needed to structure this in terms of having really strong roots to Christ, first of all, but also to the values that Restore represents so that we can grow from the roots up. This is not a pyramid scheme. It's not a top down triangle. It's a bottom up, beautiful organic tree. And so founding partner mentors are meant to represent these beautiful new branches. And so, what are some of the things for your branch that might be just different or kind of unique, some of the different facets that might be unique to what your branch would encompass?
Okay. And so I struggle with this one, full transparency, because I feel like the women, there's 10 of us so far that are founding partner mentors, and these are exceptional, top notch women that we all align with the mission and vision and values of this company. Right. And so it's like, what's going to set me apart? What I like envision and what I want to foster is a culture that is of community and acceptance and like support. But I'm like, I think all these things these other girls are going to do too. But I can tell you my part is that if you are like with my team, and I say my, like, my brand basically is that it's, there's a culture there, there's a community there. And it's not like this like lollygagging in the backyard of live, laugh, love, but it's like, hey, like we have your back. We're in this together. Like also support and hyping each other up. That was one thing that was really big within my last, company is that we supported one another. We hyped each other and we instilled that going, from basically there, like top down or like mentorship down is like the support aspect. But that relationship is like true relationships within there to where I've always been somebody that it doesn't matter if you're direct to me or not. Clearly, it was even outside of that, but like kind of like tapping down is kind of what we call it and building those relationships multiple levels down to where there were girls I mentored and had calls with. And that's what I hope to continue that were not necessarily direct to me, so being able to help and serve. So that acceptance of, I know we've talked about this, that like, yes, there are those of us that, we are Christians and we are believers. And I think that's kind of what has allowed us to all come together. But even if you're not, you have a place here and accepting of whatever it is, wherever it is. And I think that's just the open part of you might be in a season of life where you have to put the brakes on, or maybe you're at a place to run and just accepting whatever walk that is during the time. And then also growth of like, I want it to be like this is a team of growth. And for me, I know I very much felt like Heather talked about, when I joined my last company, it already been 4 years in. So I am the strategist in me looked at how long did it take typical girls to get to wherever they were. And I felt like I was growing slow, right? But I didn't realize like at that point, I didn't know that like I didn't join when it first, I mean, I knew I didn't join when it first began, but I didn't join when it first began. I didn't join during the COVID boom. I joined when it was kind of at a different slope and I was still able to do what I did, but I felt like it was slow growth. But I also feel like the Lord allowed me to do that and grow slow, but also grow high. Okay. If y'all are watching, you're seeing my like, I talk with my hands, but basically grow high to know that it has been done, it can be done. Right. And so just wanting women to know that like, I feel like there's so many pieces of that, but just that they're wanted and they're accepted and everyone has a place where you come in and that you'll be loved and that it's also a business. Like I view it as a business that some people are going to come in not for the business aspect of it as much as they will that community piece.
Yeah, because not everybody is going to have the same big goals as I know you had from the very beginning. Because I remember the first time I met you was at a leadership retreat, and we wrote, everybody kind of was like, "Oh, where do you want to be a year from now?" And I remember yours was like, "Oh, wow, those are some big, some big goals." So, like you said, you know how to do that. You know how to look to the example of people who've done that before, but you also know how to empathize as a strength, but also include those that don't have those same big goals and make it feel like a family. And that's what we hope in every founding partner mentor I know, believes that it's like this is a family. Like when you get Miranda's team, you get everyone's team. It's just like in our family, like your aunts or, uncles, like sometimes are the people who can pour into you as well. And that
Mhm.
was exactly what we wanted is that culture of abundance and like a family, right?
Yes.
You, my friend, that was beautifully said. So, and it is that's a tough question because it's not meant to compare. It's more
Yeah.
meant to just allow those listening to kind of envision the subtle differences because that's the thing is if you look at a tree, not every branch is the same, right? Not every branch is like
It's
structured.
like how they talk about eyebrows, like sisters, not twins, but it's like, so we're aligned, but we're not the same, you know?
I love it. So this next question is another one that's hard because obviously, like you said, you welcome everyone, but like if you had to pick some words to describe like an ideal dream team or an ideal partner advocate for your team, what, for those listening, who is it that you're really looking for to serve?
I think for me, it's number one, somebody that wants more. And I know that's where I was 4 years ago when I stepped into direct sales. I needed more outside of, for me, it was 2 kids to and under. I needed something else. I wanted something for me, something that was fun for me. And that's what it started with. But also, more can mean financially, it can mean freedom and flexibility. It could mean that fun. Like I said, it could mean the community. You need a community. Also, for me, when I stepped into it, it was 2021. I had had a baby in 2020 during COVID. I literally had her the day before the hospital policies changed. And so I missed the community of women's ministry and all of that. So that's what this kind of became to me, but it also allowed me to build a business around it, right? And so I think so many of us want more and we may not know it yet. So just the woman that is, and she can find her place, whether that's the community, the sisterhood, support, finances, freedom, flexibility, but also I think a key thing that I just love seeing within that community is that abundance mindset. Like I said, it's just knowing that there's so much of what we do that we can share with each other and help each other out. So somebody that is kind of that like team player of like, yes, you have your business, but yes, let's like work together to bring others up and to take others alongside with us.
Yeah, I think some people have that experience, like, and you are connected with people, that have literally exemplified that in network marketing. But some people like you are just naturally like that. And so, are looking for other people that are like or have experienced the opposite of that and, long for that light. So I think that was beautifully said as well. So the last thing, and this is a fun thing, is of all the products, because you've had an opportunity to kind of get some things in your hands to test and try and give feedback. And what's really fun is like we're in the final stages of like, approving formulas and all of those things. So some things we've talked about, some things we haven't. So I'm curious to know of the things you've tried, what is the product that you're most excited about for Restore?
Okay, I'm going to take a spin on this one. I'll share exactly what you asked, but I think one of my favorite things about the products would be that we have some and the way they've been named, I think is just, and I don't know, like, I don't want to share too much, but it's just, I'm a very intentional person and have really tried. That was my word of the year this year. And so I love like the intentionality aspect of some of that. And y'all will see as it comes to be that piece. And then, okay, so favorite product.
Could be a color, could be a specific formulation, could be
Okay.
Neosporin. I'm just kidding. Except actually,
Well, okay, so this will kind of gives one piece of it away, but so crazy enough, and I don't think Heather, I mean, like, Heather probably didn't really know this when it first came to be, but one of the lip and cheeks colors that we have that I can use for both for me is the color Frances. And Frances is actually like my grandma's name is Kay Frances. And so before we even tried them, Heather had kind of put a few names with them. And then that was the one that I just love. And I think that's just so cool that it's that, that piece. But now I really love how Heather shared earlier, if you were watching on YouTube, the like our elixir that we have and just the renewal molecule, which is clearly what sets us apart, but just what it is able to do. And that is just going to be, I think, a game changer. And just that it's in so many of our products and there's opportunity to expand with it and just the science behind it. Because, like, as much as I'm like that data person and strategist, like, there's the science piece to it too. And then the heart behind it with our molecular biologist, like his heart, and we all love a story. And so just the way I truly believe that is something that is easy for us. Like Heather mentioned at the beginning, how we started here and here, but we really didn't deviate from our mission, vision, and values. And that's because of who, not how, right? We talked about that. So when we sat down and we talked about who do we want to serve first, but then we also talked about who as far as all of us and what are our mission, vision, and values, and we got those down. We didn't deviate because we knew that we were serving him and bringing him glory through those things. And the products, that those will all come to be, right? And that can all like take place later, but it was like getting those things down first. We didn't like, it's kind of like the word, like, you don't deviate from it. We might all like, it might mean something to us at different stages of life, right? But anyway, so yeah.
I I love that. And I think you touched on something that I just realized I'm not sure that I've shared publicly. And that is that all the color names, or at least the cheek lip shades, the eyeshadows, they are grandma names. They are specifically chosen and curated from some of the founding partner mentors, some other, people who've been, kind of key stakeholders along this way. And so we've been gathering those names, and it's been really amazing to watch them serendipitously fall into the places that they're meant to, and to be able to watch that. It's been really, really, really cool. So that is a fun and exciting update that, again, I don't know, like, so
Well, that's why I was like, oh no, people know this. Yeah.
love it. That's exactly, I'm like, okay, what can we share that people don't already
Um,
know? So even if it slips out, I'd love. Oh, and another fun thing, just to show you guys, like, Miranda is testing out a product that we hope to have on the line. It was kind of a first iteration of a product that was maybe a little extra. And I was like, I don't think this is exactly what I had in mind for this, but at the same time, it's pretty cool. And so, like, that's what the fun part about this is, not just Miranda, but honestly, anybody that's listening, like, we want to invite you on this product development journey together to find out, like she said, like, if it fits in our mission, vision, and values, and if it can include the molecule, and if it can be something. That's why the focus group survey, which is the next step for any of you guys who want to learn more. And you can just learn this little box. If you don't yet have a founding partner mentor that you are aligned with, you can check the box and connect with her that way. But that's why those questions are on there, is to figure out, like, what do people use and need and love, and like what are the things that they can do. So that's the fun part, is it's been able to watch you be able to try some things and see the benefits of it. It's fun.
That's been the part that I think is so neat on this side of it is being able, you know, to feel seen and valued, right, from a different standpoint. But also like having input in things, but not just for me, but that I've been able, like the women that are in my focus group, like talking to them, asking their feedback, and like you value that, you and Roger, like we bring it to you, and we're like, this is what they say, or this is what we believe, and it's not always all the same, and we can't please everyone, and that's not what it's for, but it's to get feedback from the people we know and trust, and just let them have a seat at the table in the capacity that they can.
Yes. Yes. Amen to that. So if you haven't yet checked out that focus group survey, look in the description if you're watching YouTube or the show notes if you're listening wherever you listen to podcasts. Is that's a great place to start to get feedback with a no pressure, like for whatever you decide to do or not with Restore. That's definitely all of our heart on. So Miranda, thank you so much for sharing all of this goodness. I'd love to have you wrap up with a prayer for those that are listening.
Yes.
It's been such a joy.
I've enjoyed it. It's been always, like I said it before, always a joy, always fun. So I would be honored. All right, friends. Heavenly Father, Lord, I thank you for this time, Lord. Thank you for being here. Thank you for guiding our conversation, Lord. I just trust and hope that it brings you glory, Lord, and just um, we trust in you and the plans that you have, and we are hopeful for our future and what you'll do in and through Restore, but also just this podcast and the people Heather reaches through it, Lord. Just that we would make you known, we would shine you in what we do, Lord, and that others would see you and your goodness. Um, we thank you for this time we had together today, Lord. We just ask you for all of those that are here, that are listening and joining in with us, Lord, just that you would bless them and whatever it is that they are walking through right now. Lord, just that you would be with them and that you would just wrap your arms around them in just a special way, and they would feel your presence and the weight of whatever they're carrying, Lord. And we just thank you for this time together. I thank you for the opportunity to do this. I thank you for the seat here, Lord. And I just thank you just for what you've given us and what you've allowed us to share and what we've walked through to get us to this point that we could truly cling to you, Lord. And I just thank you, just that beauty does come from ashes. And you have shown us that time and time again. And we love you, Lord, and we praise you and we thank you. Amen.
And so beautifully said. I know it blessed everybody that's listening. So thank you guys. And thank you again, Miranda, for being here.
Thank y'all.